In a coastal town in Maine, where the Atlantic never seemed to rest and the smell of salt hung in the air year-round, there lived a 26-year-old woman named Emma. She had grown up in that town, gone to a good state university on a partial scholarship, and worked her way into a decent marketing job at a firm in Portland. By most measures, she was doing well. But Emma couldn't feel it. No matter how much she achieved, satisfaction stayed just out of reach. She got promoted, but immediately started worrying about the next promotion. She bought her first car, and within a week was already looking at better ones online. She had good friends who genuinely cared about her, but at every gathering she'd find herself scrolling through other people's highlight reels on Instagram, quietly measuring herself against strangers. She earned enough to pay her bills and save a little, but always felt financially behind somehow. People in her life had started calling her a complainer. Her mom once told her, "Emma, honey, you'd find something wrong with winning the lottery." That stung mostly because Emma suspected it was true, but she didn't know how to be any different. It felt less like ingratitude and more like hunger, a constant, low-grade hunger that nothing seemed to fill. One afternoon at work, a coworker named Darnell mentioned an old retired professor who lived in a small cottage near the lighthouse at the edge of their town. He had spent decades teaching philosophy and human behavior at a university in Boston before stepping away from it all. Now he tended a small garden, took long walks on the beach, and occasionally sat with people who came looking for something they couldn't quite name. "My aunt went to see him last spring," Darnell said, stirring his coffee. "She was going through a rough patch, said talking to him was the first time in years she actually felt like herself." Emma thought about that on her drive home. She thought about it again that night, lying awake at 1 a.m. with her phone face down on the pillow beside her. Finally, she thought, what do I have to lose? On a gray Saturday morning in October, she drove out to the lighthouse. The path leading to the cottage was narrow and edged with wild beach grass that had gone gold for the fall. She found the old professor sitting on a wooden bench outside, a fleece jacket zipped to his chin, watching the waves roll in. He had white hair, an unhurried face, and the kind of stillness that made Emma feel slightly self-conscious just standing there. He turned and looked at her with calm, attentive eyes. He didn't seem surprised, he just waited. Emma sat down on the other end of the bench and pulled her jacket tighter against the wind. After a moment, she said, "I'm not even sure how to explain why I'm here. I have a good life, I know I do, but I can't seem to enjoy it. I always feel like something's missing, and I don't know what it is." The professor nodded, as if she'd said something he recognized completely. Then he stood and said, "Come on inside, I'll put on some coffee." His kitchen was small and warm, with a cast-iron stove and shelves full of old paperbacks. He set a kettle on the burner and pulled 2 ceramic mugs down from a hook. He filled one for himself, a good, comfortable amount, leaving an inch of space near the top. Then he started filling Emma's cup. He filled it to the brim. And then he kept pouring. The coffee rose to the rim, tipped over the edge, and spread across the wooden table in a dark, steaming puddle. Emma pushed back her chair. "Professor, it's overflowing." He set the kettle down calmly, pulled a dish towel off the oven handle, and began wiping the table without any rush. Then he looked at her and asked, "Could any more coffee have gone into that cup?" "Obviously not," she said. "It was already completely full." He pulled out a chair and sat down across from her. "Emma, that is you." She blinked. "What do you mean?" "Your mind," he said quietly, "is like that cup. You are so full of wanting what you don't have yet, full of measuring yourself against everyone else, full of mental noise about the future and the past, that there is genuinely no room left for anything good to land. Satisfaction tries to get in and it spills right over the edge. Joy tries to get in, gratitude tries to get in, and they can't because the cup is already overflowing." Emma stared at the coffee-stained table. The words were simple, but they sat in her chest like a stone dropped into still water. "So what do I do?" she asked. "How do I empty it?" He leaned back in his chair and looked out the small kitchen window at the gray sky and the sea beyond it. "That is not quite the right question," he said. "You don't need to empty yourself completely. You need to stop pouring the wrong things in. Every time you compare your life to someone's Instagram post, into the cup. Every time you dismiss what you already have because it's not as good as what you imagine you should have, into the cup. every time you reach the weekend, and spend it anxious about Monday instead of actually resting into the cup. After a while, you've filled yourself right up with things that don't nourish you, and there's no space left. He got up, rinsed out her mug, and poured her a fresh cup. He set it in front of her carefully. "Gratitude creates space," he said. "Real gratitude, not the kind where you tell yourself you should be grateful, but the kind where you actually stop and notice what's right in front of you. That practice, done honestly and regularly, is what slowly empties the cup of the wrong things. It makes room." Emma wrapped both hands around the warm mug. She looked at it, actually looked at it. The deep brown color of the coffee, the steam curling off the surface, the solid weight of the ceramic in her palms. She took a slow sip and sat with it for a moment. It was good coffee. She couldn't remember the last time she'd noticed that something was good without immediately reaching for something better. They talked for another hour about her job, her habits, her phone, the way she spent her Sunday nights dreading Monday instead of enjoying Sunday. The professor didn't lecture. He mostly asked questions. But by the time Emma stood up to leave, something in her had shifted in a way she couldn't fully articulate yet. She drove home along the coast road with the windows cracked, the cold October air rushing in. The Atlantic was green-gray and churning out to her left. The trees along the road had gone orange and red. She had driven this road 100 times without really seeing it. She saw it now. Her apartment was the same one she'd been quietly dissatisfied with for 2 years. Her car was the same one she'd been meaning to upgrade. Her life was exactly what it had been that morning when she'd driven out to the lighthouse feeling hollow. But something had made room. Something small and quiet had opened up in her chest, and she could feel tentatively, like a window opened just an inch, the beginnings of enough. She thought about what the professor had said as she pulled into her parking spot and sat there for a moment with the engine off. A full cup can receive nothing, but a grateful heart is never truly empty. She got out of the car, stood in the cold air for a second, and looked up at the sky. Then she went inside and made herself a cup of coffee. Just a cup. Nothing more, nothing less. And for the first time in a long time, it was exactly what she needed.